our
Azerbaijan
Grand
Prix
F1
driver
ratings. This video is sponsored by the wonderful people over at Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the P1 podcast with Matthew and Thomas. And we have locked in lots of numbers, ready to share them with the world. And we're going to celebrate, because this is the first time ever that we all agree, and there's no contentious gradings whatsoever from this weekend's performances. There's no polar opposite numbers that you could have gone for certain drivers if you deem it a certain way. Isn't that right, Tommy?
Of course, we can all agree that we're all right.
Let's get into F1 driver ratings straight away and start with Ollie Bearman, not Kevin Magnussen because he's banned. Started 8th, finished... No, he didn't start 8th. He finished... We were at a wedding last night, all right? Relax. Ollie Bearman started 10th, finished 10th. And you might have guessed, I've given him an 8 out of 10. That's why I said 8th. Well done, Ollie Bearman. It's an 8 out of 10 from me. I think it was a strong weekend. It was everything he could have hoped for, really. Held position at the start. He looked quite strong in the early phases, and then I think as the medium started to degrade, he became under pressure a bit. But at the end, he absolutely mugged his teammate. Absolutely just robbed him in broad daylight with the whole confusion around the Sainz-Perez crash. Bearman, who you would think, if anything, it would be the other way around, and Bearman would be the one not really paying attention to if it's a yellow flag or a VSC or a red flag. But no, it was Hulk that was snoozing, and yeah, Bearman scored a point just ahead of his teammate. So I'm giving him an 8 out of 10.
I have gone for a 9 out of 10 for Ollie Bearman. I think it's a sensational job to join Haas for a one-off race, and not only, like you say, he beat Hulkenberg in the race, mugged him, and it could have easily finished behind Hulkenberg, but made that move, which is very impressive. And he outqualified Nico Hulkenberg as well, which is no mean feat, because of course Hulkenberg, that has been his most impressive thing this year, is Hulkenberg qualifying extremely well, and the year before. So yeah, another fantastic job by Ollie Bearman. And after his Saudi performance, probably on average, he's probably now the highest driver on average for driver ratings, because he's had 2 very good races.
He absolutely has. I'm very close to changing it to a 9, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with an 8 for now. The fans gave him an 8. Have you ever dreamt of owning your own website, but never thought that you had the right skills or coding knowledge in order to have one? Well, let me introduce you to Squarespace, a place where you can build a website with absolutely no coding knowledge required. Start with a best-in-class website template and customize every design detail with reimagined drag and drop technology for desktop or mobile. What's better too is that you can create one for free and only start paying once you decide to go ahead and publish your website. So what are you waiting for? Head to squarespace.com/P1 to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code P1. Nico Hulkenberg started 12th, finished 11th.
I have gone for a 6 out of 10 for Nico Hulkenberg. Which I know he's right behind his teammate, and I've given his teammate a 9, but his teammate has just jumped into that car, beaten him in qualifying, and then mugged him in the race. And Nico Hulkenberg has done 8,000 Grand Prix and shouldn't be getting, the most experienced driver in Formula 1 history with his 8,000 Grand Prix. But no, Hulkenberg shouldn't be getting mugged on the line and out-muscled by what is essentially a stand-in driver.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 as well, but my difference between the two teammates are 2, not 3 points. So let's see if that will generate some discussion in the comments. But yeah, I've gone for a 6, just purely because it wasn't the greatest of weekends for Nico. As you mentioned already, Tommy Quali was not great. But I think as well, the caught snoozing at the end of the race literally cost him scoring a point. Hamilton got through on him
arguably
as well.
2.
Yeah, 2 points actually, because Hamilton got through on him as well, and it was quite literally the penultimate lap of the race. But yeah, it's going to be a 6 out of 10 from me. And the fans also gave Nico a 6. Zhou Guanyu. Everybody stick your seatbelts on and get ready. Started 17th, finished 14th. It's going to be a 7 out of 10 for Zhou Guanyu. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, baby. Zhou Guanyu doesn't get a 5. Doesn't get a 6. He gets a 7. Because he actually did pretty well. I think he can be very happy with this performance. Stayed on the lead lap, I think, just about. I think it was a few seconds maybe between being lapped and not, but he beat his teammate. He saw my crazy prediction and said yes, but also a bit too much yes. So Tommy won't give me a point. Thanks, mate. Still very savagely hurt by that. But yeah, he had a very strong race, and we don't have to say, oh, well, you know, he had this pit stop. There's no excuses. I think he drove a reasonable, good race and beat Bottas as well, which is no mean feat.
Zhou Guanyu, I've also gone for a 7 out of 10. Yes, he has not been driving well recently, and this was much more like it. Beating Bottas, a track that Bottas is very good at as well. And, you know, his stint, he went very long on the hard tyres at the start, you know, pitted later than Albon. So great time management from him to deliver that strategy as well. And yes, much more of an impressive race from Zhou. And 14th, when people don't retire anymore, is basically all you can hope for in a stake now.
The fans gave him a 5.
Wow.
Disgusting. Have you watched Zhou's race? Everybody that voted a 5?
Every lap?
Yeah. How the turntables, everybody. Why don't you go back and watch Zhou's race? It was a 7 out of 10. Disgusting. Right, Valtteri Bottas started 16th, finished 16th.
I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for Valtteri Bottas. Disappointing. You know, you just said that two drivers have essentially, at the front, have retired from the race, which should mean you should probably move up the order. But he has not. And, yeah, not great for Bottas at all. And, yeah, he actually struggled quite a lot with his tyres, unlike his teammate. And it's normally he's the one doing a good job, but this time he was not.
I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for Bottas as well. Had huge degradation on the medium tyres in the first stint. And even after then, it was struggle town for Bottas, who essentially finished last of the finishers. I know Perez and Sainz did technically. They technically were classified. And Stroll actually was also technically classified, I think. But in terms of actual cars with 4 wheels, Bottas was the last of the finishers. So, yeah, it's a 4 out of 10. The fans gave him a 5. So you are telling me, right, everybody voting, that Zhou gets the same score as Bottas. Absolutely outrageous. Yeah. How do you like us now? We're turning it back on you. Yeah, exactly. Right, moving on. Yuki Tsunoda started 11th, didn't finish. I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Yuki Tsunoda because he did he did 1 lap before he got yeeted by Stroll, but he qualified all right in an RB that wasn't that great. Beat his teammate in qualifying. Then it was at the end. So 6 out of 10.
I've also gone for a 6 out of 10. Yeah, it's a very difficult one to grade because he's only done 1 racing lap, but I feel like he deserves
He actually
an
did 14
point.
racing laps, Tommy, but 13 of those were with a hole in his car.
With a hole in the car, yeah. So, yeah, without the hole in his car, would have won the race, of course. But, no, the fact that I've giving him that extra grade is because of his qualifying, where he was, finished quite a few places ahead of his teammate, actually.
The fans gave him a 5. Daniel Ricciardo started 14th, finished 13th.
I have gone for a 5 out of 10 for Daniel Ricciardo. It was just I know the RB is not very good, but a very average race, a very bizarre race. He basically went the entire way, almost, and pitted for softs at the end.
Did they go home after Tsunoda got hit and they were like, we've got no more cars left, and just left Danny Rick out there for 49 laps on the hards?
Yeah.
Why is he pitting with 2 laps to go on the softs?
Very weird. Very, very weird.
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 as well for Danny Rick. It's interesting that he said after the race that he's never experienced graining like that, and the swing of lap time was up to 4 seconds. So it seems as though there were quite a few drivers that were not happy with how the tyres were behaving at Baku. But yeah, it's a 5 out of 10. Very anonymous from Danny Rick. I think VCarb have a part to play with that, because that strategy just screams to me, we've got no hope. The fans gave him a 5 as well. Franco Colapinto started 8th, finished 8th. It's going to be a 4 out of 10 for Franco Colapinto, because Logan Sargent would have won the race in that car. It's, of course, a 10 out of 10. What an unbelievable weekend for Franco Colapinto. I can't believe it's that way around, right? Where we had Monza where he jumped in the car, and it was a good weekend for someone that's literally just jumped in an F1 car. But I don't think any of us were going, he is the next big thing. I don't think we still are after Baku, because that would be incredibly knee-jerk. But what we are saying is, oh my God, okay, you can do that around Baku where you out-qualified your teammate, yet you're making passes on drivers like Ricciardo and Gasly and driving very confidently, it has to be said. The first Argentinian point scorer for 42 years. And he was close, I think, to... was it Alonso as well? They were fighting Alonso, I think, during the race. So, yeah, he didn't look out of sorts at all. So it's a stone cold 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I've also gone for a 10 out of 10 for Franco Colapinto. Fantastic drive. Huge thing for him to do around Baku. A very difficult track. Didn't get phased by the little off, that he had. Crashed into the wall. All the Logan Sargent memes came out. Oh, what has James Vowles done putting him in? And he went, no, you know what? I'm going to out-qualify Albon. And then I'm going to be on the back of him at the race and score 4 times Logan Sargent's points tally of his whole career in my second race. So amazing stuff from Colapinto.
And the fans, of course, gave him a 10 out of 10. Alex Albon started 9th. Of course, had a fan stuck in his car during qualifying, which we will just pop in there as well, and finished 7th.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Alex Albon. I think it was a fantastic drive. It's almost a 10. Could he have beaten Alonso on the road? Maybe. The Williams did look very good, but of course, he did get out-qualified by his very inexperienced teammate, so that maybe downgrades him a little bit, but it was a very, very good drive for Albon, has to be said. And he was running 3rd at one point. Of course, he hadn't pitted, but it was very bizarre to see a Williams battling a McLaren and a Red Bull at one point, which was quite fun. Another solid job for Albon.
It's a 9 out of 10 from me as well. Of course, Franco Colapinto's getting a bit of an extra boost because he's literally just joined Formula One. But Alex still had a great weekend. As you mentioned, Tommy, I think qualifying is obviously a small, tiny little blip in an otherwise amazing weekend for Williams, scoring 10 points collectively. Albon had a great stint because they were quite close, I think, in that first stint, Albon and Colapinto, of course, on different tyre strategies. But I think Alex then really had a really strong second stint and cleared away from his inexperienced teammate. But it's a 9 out of 10. It's still a fantastic job. And the fans gave Alex a 9 as well. Esteban Ocon started from the pit lane, finished 15th. Oh my goodness. Alpine. Ocon. I mean, what has gone on? Where is Ocon right now? Like, what has happened to Esteban Ocon? Ooh, it's going to be a 4 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon. A weekend to forget. Obviously, started in the pit lane. I don't think we ever really saw him, to be honest with you. He had hardly any pace. I think he had a very similar strategy, actually, to Daniel Ricciardo, where he literally was just out there the entire race. And his team also forgot about him. But yes, he was only ahead of Bottas, so I'm giving him a 4.
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon. The Alpine is looking woeful. Started, like you say, from the pit lane. Didn't really do a lot, but I think the performance of that car is not really there at the moment. Strange that they've really fallen back after a very weird spell where they just kind of got a bit good again and were scoring points, and then all of a sudden they've kind of almost gone right back to where they were at the start of the season.
The fans gave Ocon a 5 as well. Pierre Gasly started 18th and was disqualified from quali for exceeding permitted fuel flow rate and finished 12th.
I have gone for a 7 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. I think this is a case of where I almost nearly wanted to give him an 8. I think this is very much a case of one of those drives where...
Here we go. Get the
might
bingo card out.
Yeah, might be one of the best drives he's ever done in his career.
There it is.
Which he even said. He himself said, one
of the best
races of the season for him. But when no one retires from races anymore, all you can hope for is, out the points.
I am going to go for an 8 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give him an 8. You know what? I'm feeling frisky. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like it's one of those that it does feel like it's under the radar because he's in a dustbin. But to finish 12th after starting from the back, and the fact that he said it's one of his best races, that gives us good indication, because I don't think anybody's watched the entire onboard of Pierre Gasly's race from Baku. You look like you're about to say something, Tommy.
Yeah, I'm also tempted to change mine to an 8 because I've just seen that he was absolutely miles ahead of Ocon, even further than I thought, like well over 30 seconds clear.
Yeah, 40 seconds actually before the crash came.
8 out of 10, sorry editor.
Wow, brilliant. Halfway through my chatting and you're like, boom, there goes Tommy's face with an 8. But yeah, we're going to go with an 8 for Pierre Gasly. Great drive. I mean, no points. You get an 8 out of 10 in the driver ratings, which is, of course, what Formula 1 drivers all aspire to get, is a high grade in this non-controversial series. So yeah, 8 out of 10 from me. The fans gave him a 5. Does anybody watch races anymore?
That's very much kind of... What did Gasly do? Oh, I don't really know. 5.
5. Yeah, exactly.
Let me get to my spicy
Gasly.
Opinions and just give everyone a 5 that's in the midfield. Speaking
of spicy opinions, let's go to Lance Stroll. Started 13th, didn't finish. It's a 2 out of 10 for Lance Stroll from me. Poor qualifying. Yeets into the side of Tsunoda. It's not the worst ever move, but it's a desperate move from Lance. Yuki Tsunoda has absolutely no reason to give him space on the inside. Maybe, had he seen in the mirrors that was Lance Stroll having a little look up the inside, he would go back in time and perhaps not hit the apex because he knows what's going to happen. But that's not on Yuki at all. That's 100% Lance Stroll's fault. It's kind of like an F2 move. That's exactly what Antonelli did in the sprint. It's just a silly move to make on lap 1.
I've gone for a 1 for Lance Stroll. It is, which is how many laps he went into the race without doing something stupid. Not even that. Got a puncture straight away for his move on Tsunoda, which was just a daft thing to do. But he was also a second slower than Alonso in qualifying, which is like how you're a second slower in the same car. He really had a stinker of a weekend, and it's after he was kind of being like a bit anonymous in a good way, where he was there or thereabouts with Alonso, and he just seems to have these weekends every like 4 or 5 races, more than a lot of other drivers do, where he's just absolutely awful. So yeah, not good for Stroll.
The fans have also gone for a 2 out of 10 for Lance Stroll. Fernando Alonso started 7th, finished 6th.
I have gone for a 9 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso. Because of course I have.
Here we go. Yeah, the best driver of all time. Come on, off you go. Start the spiel.
Yeah. The loneliest race ever. But he did get everything he could out of that car. Put a second on Lance Stroll in qualifying. Got the maximum. We'll never know how good that Aston Martin is because Stroll's in the other car. But Alonso was just... Did much more of an Alonso kind of race, where maximised the race finish, maximised where he finished in qualifying, and it was just, that's why it's a 9.
Beautiful.
Just beautiful.
Brought
just what
a tear to your eye. I've gone for a 9 out of 10 as well for Fernando Alonso, because it was
Gave him
It was a brilliant, a brilliant performance from Fernando. A quiet one, kept the Williams at bay, and finished top of Formula B. Tick, tick, tick. Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. 9 out of 10 from me. The fans gave him an 8. Oscar Piastri started second, finished first. It's a 10 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri. I thought the race was Charles Leclerc's. Okay? I did. Especially in that first stint. I even said, and I regret it, that it was too easy at one point when it was 5.5 seconds clear. But Oscar Piastri, he's entered the building, okay? He's not this apprentice anymore. He wins races, and he has the... Look, there's so many things you can commend him for in this weekend. Even just all of the blah, 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 blah that happened before the weekend of how are you going to help Lando? Yes, McLaren's going to favour Lando, blah, 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 blah. He performed in qualifying, stuck it on the front row of the grid. He then actually went against his engineer's wishes in the second stint, who told him to sort of bed the tyres in a bit more and not cook them like the mediums in the first stint, and just went, you know what, nah, I see the opportunity to pass Charles Leclerc, and I did. Is ridiculous. And not just Charles Leclerc, Perez was there as well. It was not an easy race to win in the slightest. And Oscar did it. He drove away at the end. It was just perfect. And he's going to be a force to be reckoned with if he keeps this up.
It's good to hear the word minerals again. I feel like it's been too long.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring that one out now. I saw a little smirk from you as well. So, you're welcome.
Of course, it's a 10 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri. It would be an 11 out of 10 if that was such a thing, because it was the perfect drive. I particularly love it when a driver ignores their engineer and goes for it, and it is successful, because you want to see the best drivers use their driver instinct and know this is my time to do it. I'm the one driving the car. I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what I did.
I seem to recall Max at Silverstone.
That's the one that I was literally sticks in my mind as well, when they said, this is my only chance. When Mercedes were dominating, he came on the radio and he was like, this is the only chance I might get all year to the race. Mercedes absolutely jog on. I'm going to battle them. And he won the race. So that's the kind of thing I love seeing racing drivers do. The fans, of course, also gave him a 10 out of 10. Lando Norris started 15th, finished 4th. I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Lando Norris. Why do I feel like Lando's grade is always the most difficult one to grade? And you best believe there's going to be comments already. How could you possibly give him an 8? He got knocked out in Q1. He should be given a 4. And then there'll be other people going, how do you not give him a 10? Yeah, he got knocked out because there was a yellow flag. It depends how you see the situation, doesn't it? Yeah, so the way I've seen the situation is it was a fair bit of his fault to have the problem, which is why I can't give him a 9 or a 10 for his comeback. There is an element of bad luck, but you do wonder why he's completely aborted his lap when he must know I'm not going to get through. So from that side, maybe that's why I've not, because his comeback was brilliant. When you're starting that far back, could have easily knocked a front wing off in the pack or whatever, but just drove a very mature and strong race. And also credit to him as well for helping Oscar when he did with the kind of backing up of Perez, because that was incredibly close. And I don't think it would have. Oscar arguably might not have even won the race without Lando doing that. So a solid job from Lando this weekend. I've also gone for an 8 out of 10 for Lando. I think it sums it up perfectly, really. I've already stated my opinion after qualifying. I felt as though, yes, there was a yellow flag and he did lift a little bit, but there was a lot of confusion. And ultimately, there are plenty of examples where drivers have been able to finish their laps even with a yellow flag in a sector. So we've already covered all of that sort of stuff. But in terms of the race, he was brilliant. As you say, he could have been involved in all the kinds of carnage. He was involved, I think, in a 4-car battle into turn 1 in the first lap or two, and it was
Great to see him come through the field. He showed really good pace throughout the Grand Prix. Would have definitely been fighting for the win had he actually qualified somewhere in the sort of top 5. But alas, that's ifs, buts and maybes. We have to judge him on what he did, and he drove brilliantly. So yeah, an 8 out of 10 from me for Lando. The fans gave him a 9. And big shout out to Lando for the team orders with Piastri, because he didn't even question it, he just did it. And that, in my opinion, won Oscar the race. And actually, come to think of it, because he did that, Charles Leclerc didn't win the race. 2 out of 10 for Lando Norris, thank you. Carlos Sainz started 3rd, did not finish. Speaking of debate... Oh, no. Okay, so I
hope it's a 1 or a 10, because you have to have a very extreme opinion on it.
Oh, yes. Someone has to be at fault at all times, and it can't just be a racing incident and an unlucky outcome. I have gone for an 8 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. I think he drove a brilliant race, especially towards the end. He brought himself in to the, technically, fight for the win. Did we ever think he was going to win? Not really. We could see how difficult it was to overtake at times. But up until the moment, I think Carlos would have been very happy. Could have been on the podium. Was ahead of Perez briefly. And then we get to the incident. We've spoken about it in the podcast. I still very much feel as though it was a racing incident. 2 cars coming together slightly. Minor inputs. The stewards deemed it a racing incident. I still completely agree with that. So I'm not going to downgrade Sainz nor Perez for their rating and involvement in the crash.
I've also gone for an 8 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. Yes, he could have easily finished that race second, and then it would have been, maybe looking at a 9 out of 10 or something. But yeah, it was, my opinion hasn't changed on the incident, despite seeing all sorts of crazy takes on Twitter, including someone that loaded up the F1 game and showed the racing line of Carlos Sainz, which was actually incredible. I
saw this.
Yeah.
Like, but look where the racing line is the game. Like, someone hasn't just drawn that out.
And also, like, I mean, this is the thing. Like, I'm not saying, by saying a racing incident, I'm saying that neither was fully at fault, but I'm also saying both of them were 50-50 to blame, because they both could have got out of it, but they didn't. It was a game of chicken, basically, and they both lost because neither backed out, because they're racing drivers and they want to win. So that's just racing.
Now, before we dive into any more of the ratings, I want to urge you all to subscribe that haven't already, because there are more than a third of you that haven't subscribed to this channel. But if you're commenting saying that we got Zhou Guanyu's rating wrong, then you also need to be subscribed for that kind of privilege, okay? So please subscribe, that would be lovely. And we're trying to hit 500,000, you know what I'm saying? And also, whilst you're there, if you are enjoying this series and you don't despise our existence during this driver ratings, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps us a lot to not want to bin this series off into Narnia. The fans gave Carlos an 8. I don't even know if I said that or not. We move on. Charles Leclerc started first, finished second.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. I think the crash, in a weird way, kind of saved his bacon, because it could have easily been 4th, and then, yeah, maybe he is getting an 8 or something, because he absolutely cooked his tyres. Looking back, I don't think it's one of those drives where I can say, I've given Charles Leclerc a 10 before, even when he started on pole and lost the lead, but I can't do that this time, because I think his defence of the move wasn't strong enough, and if he'd stayed ahead, then maybe he could have held on if Piastri hadn't made that move, and I think his defence for it, I believe he himself was he reflective on that as well, that the defence of his move?
Yes, he said that
he should have been better.
There was 2 factors as to why they didn't win the race. One was tyre management on the outlap from the pits. They expected for it to take a long time for everyone to warm up their tyres, which was the case for the Ferrari, but not for McLaren. And then also the fact that he didn't fight Oscar harder when he overtook.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's why for me, like, could have done more from that side, but it's still a very good drive from him in that Ferrari. You know, finishing P2, putting it on pole as he does in Baku.
And that's 4 Baku poles without a victory. Fun. I've gone for a 9 out of 10 as well for Charles. I think it was a brilliant weekend from him. He is a master around here, especially over one lap. And yeah, I think that this is probably one of, this is the first one of those 4 Bakus where he's actually had it in his hands to win the Grand Prix, in my opinion. Obviously, one of them, he was involved in a fight with Verstappen, but his car broke down. The other 2, no chance. He just stuck it on pole because he's a worldie. But this one, yeah, I was left feeling as though he could have won that race. And that's the difference between a 9 and a 10 for me. George Russell, otherwise known as the Hoover of places. Race start 5th, finished 3rd. I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for George Russell. I think it was a pretty strong drive from George. He, of course, did hoover up 2 positions at the end. But when you look at how much his teammate was also struggling in the same car, and setup, the slight setup differences and all this sort of stuff that was spoken about this weekend. But from George's perspective, he was there. He had a strong ending to the race as well and really brought himself into play. And I don't think I can give him, any higher or any lower. I think 8 is just right.
I agree. I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for George Russell as well. It was a good drive. I will get onto his teammate, but his teammate didn't seem all confident this weekend. Don't think the Mercedes was quite there. So to get a podium, even if it is from being quite fortunate, it's still a very good drive, even if he had just finished 5th on the road. So a very good job from George.
The fans gave George an 8. Lewis Hamilton started from the pit lane, finished 9th.
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. I think it was, unfortunately for him, not one of not a great drive for him, has to be said. If I'm being brutal, you can say that he started last, and that wasn't through any fault of his own, of course, for modifying the car. But the gap with Formula A now, we always see those cars breeze through the pack, and they never, in a full 50 odd lap race or whatever, you should be able to get past the cars like Williams's and Aston Martin, like Alonso's Aston Martin, with the car that he's got underneath him, and he didn't do that today.
It was tough, and I've gone for a 5 as well for Hamilton. I think it was certainly a weekend to forget on the back foot. Don't get me wrong, because of the pit lane start, but you point it out beautifully, Tommy, that you can't be being beaten by Formula B, and he was around 40 odd seconds behind Russell, I think, before the VSC came out. And yes, I know that he's stuck in traffic and all this sort of stuff, but I still think it was a poor weekend. There was a lot of managing going on. We could hear it on the team radio, and how do we judge how much management and all this sort of stuff? It's hard to tell, and the setups, and he was a test subject and all this kind of stuff that you hear. Experimental, like we heard a few years ago. Do you remember when they first wheeled out that car?
Yeah.
But we have to judge him on the performance, and he got beaten by both Williams. So it's a 5 out of 10 from me, and it's a 5 from the fans as well. Sergio Perez started 4th, did not finish. As I said with Carlos Sainz, I'm not changing what I believe was an incredibly strong race from Perez. It's a 9 out of 10 for Checo. It was great to see him have something about him this weekend. I was happy to see it. He was in the mix for the win for the entirety of that last stint. He drove brilliantly well. He found the sweet spot with the setup. His teammate didn't. And I'm gutted for him. I'm really gutted that it didn't work out. You might have your opinion on whether it was Sainz or Perez's fault. whatever. I still judge it as a racing incident. Really unlucky. They could have easily wheel-banged and carried on down the straight, but instead it was like some weird F1 game glitch where they both just went straight into the wall. So it's a big shame, but I'm not downgrading Perez from what was a very, very good weekend.
I have gone for an 8 out of 10 for Sergio Perez. It was such a shame that the crash ended his performance, because the way he was driving and the way his teammate was driving, you'd have thought they'd have swapped cars, because he was way far clear of Max. He'd outqualified Max as well. And he's driving a brilliant race. He was the one that was in that leading battle when his teammate wasn't, which is just unheard of nowadays. So, yeah, it was a really good drive from Perez. I don't blame him. Well, I blame him exactly the same as I do with Sainz. Yes, he could have backed out, but it's just a racing incident, like we've said many times, in my opinion. The only thing I would criticise him on, and maybe it's a bit of hindsight, is watching back his move on Charles Leclerc. He probably could have made that whole situation a lot easier for himself.
So I will say on that, because I am watching it back right now, Perez couldn't have switched back at all, because it was actually Charles. Charles came back down the inside with quite a late braking move, so there was no real way that Perez could have then switched back. I mean, if you're talking about the move as a whole,
yeah.
But it's hard to really have a go at him for going for a move that Charles was defending the inside. But either or, you couldn't see anything anyway because the sun was on them. But yeah, Sergio Perez, still a great performance. The fans gave him an 8. Max Verstappen started 6th, finished 5th.
I have gone for a 6 out of 10 for Max Verstappen.
Can you start crying as well?
Just because you didn't enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yes, what a... We've seen Max get bad grades before because he's crashed into someone or done a bit silly. But I don't think since... I genuinely can't even remember a race in so long where he's just like not fast and he's so much slower than his teammate and he's struggled this much. Because even the races where we've downgraded him or he's had a bad race or something's gone wrong, he's been quick, but he's crashed out or done something silly, or still been way ahead of Perez. But this week it was role reversal. He was so slow. Without the crash at the end, he's finishing 7th on the road. And 5th kind of flatters him, really. But the reason I can't give him any worse is because 5th is still actually a pretty good result for where, 1, the car is, and 2, in his World Championship to finish just behind Lando on the road despite the car difference. But yeah, really out of sorts performance from Max. Just insane. And I think if we get to Singapore and it has the same thing, I'm going to be incredibly worried about the championship, despite him still having somehow having a 59 point lead. It's quite mad, really, when he's driving that car around and seemingly unable to do anything with it and finishing races constantly in 5th and 6th.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 as well for Max. Completely off-colour weekend. You don't ever see him not get on top of the setup, and Perez clearly just did a better job on that side of the garage. And he said after the race that the car was jumping around a lot in all the low-speed corners. His wheels were coming off the ground, and he was overheating the tyres more because he was sliding a lot more. And just another weekend where Max looked nowhere in comparison to actually winning the race, which is... How
are we here?
I don't get it. The fans gave Max a 6 as well. All right, finally, who is our P1? It's got to be Franco Colapinto, which we are going to spell correctly, unlike Formula One themselves, that couldn't Photoshop Logan Sargent's body correctly. Franco, for me, for sure, I think he's the only one I gave a 10. Apart from Oscar. But Franco, it's a great performance, and it would be Piastri, but he beat Charles Leclerc, so no.
I loved Franco Colapinto's drive, but I will go for Piastri just because I think the way he's it's not even a drive for me where the McLaren was like, far and away the best car and he's just driven away from the field. He took that into his own hands and won the race himself. And just deserves all the plaudits he's getting for that drive and how he's driving at the moment.
Congratulations to Oscar, winning literally everything. And that is it. We are done. Tommy, driver ratings locked in once again. How are you feeling and what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are...
How? We've been doing this for a very long time. How do you not see this coming?
Well, I don't plan it. I just, my brain...
I know, I can tell.
Yeah. My final thoughts are... I hope I never have to give Max Verstappen a 6 again. Come on.
About a 5?
Well, God, the way Singapore,
coming,
the way Singapore's next is very concerning.
I reckon Red Bull are in Formula B in Singapore.
Oh, well, we are doing predictions in a bit.
Yeah, here we go. Right, that is it. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening, as always. Please be kind in the comments, although you've already written your comment by now, but leave us a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because it helps to support us and not start a tennis podcast. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you very soon. Lots of love. Adios. Keep pushing in the gym. Sweet dreams. Goodbye.
You saying be nice just reminded me of one funny comment that I saw when I said it was a 50-50 incident. And someone quote tweeted me and put, I can see why he wears glasses. Which was actually savage, but I was actually, that's really funny.
Wow.
So
that's really horrible. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.